Welcome to Library Seminars, a platform for the presentation of research and ideas in support of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's mission. My name is Lisa Clark, and I'm your NOAA Central Library host. Today's presentation, Science and Technology Highlights, is the last in a 5-part series sponsored by the NOAA Research and Development Enterprise Committee, focusing on the 2020 NOAA Science Report. Tony Marshak, the National Ocean Service Committee member, will introduce today's 4 speakers. Before I hand the mic to Tony, here are a few logistical tips to help you enjoy our presentation. If you're having trouble with the audio or visual components of GoToWebinar, please log out and rejoin us. This resets the software and resolves most technical issues. Our presentation is being recorded and will be available on the NOAA Central Library YouTube channel later today. Questions are encouraged, so please feel free to type them in the questions chat box located in the control panel throughout the presentations. Please let us know to whom the question is addressed by indicating the name of the person you'd like to answer it. All questions will be answered at the end of the 4 presentations. So that with that last detail, let's get started. The mic's all yours, Tony.
All right, well, thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on Science and Technology Highlights, the final of 5 seminars in the NOAA Science Report seminar series. I'm Tony Marshak, the NOS representative on the NOAA Research and Development Enterprise Committee, or RDEC, which is a cross-line office committee of the NOAA Science Council. This committee was responsible for the development of the NOAA Science Report with input from contributors across NOAA. I'll be moderating today's presentations. The sponsors for this seminar series include the NOAA Research and Development Enterprise Committee and the NOAA Central Library. The NOAA Science Report is an annual report that highlights NOAA's scientific accomplishments for the year. The NOAA Science Report celebrates NOAA's research and development in 4 sections: an introduction, science highlights, a section on bibliometrics, and a section on NOAA's scientific workforce. Together, these sections highlight how NOAA's research products impact the lives of all Americans. The 2020 NOAA Science Report will be released in the next couple of weeks on the NOAA Science Council website, so please stay tuned. The report spans the entire range of NOAA's mission. There are more than 60 stories featured in the 2020 NOAA Science Report, stories that represent the accomplishments of NOAA employees. Today, we welcome 4 speakers whose work is featured in the Science Highlights sections on NOAA Science and Technology. The bio for today's speakers can be found in the calendar and website description of today's webinar. So I'll just give the names and affiliations of our speakers in order to save more time for their presentations. Our speakers are Dr. Emily Smith, the Argo Glider and Sea Level Program Manager for the NOAA Climate Program Office. Dr. Carrie Kuhn, an ecologist with the Alaska Fisheries Science Center with NOAA Fisheries. Katie Lohr, of the Science and Heritage Coordinator with NOAA's National Marine Sanctuary Foundation in support of NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. And Julia Powell, Chief of the Navigation Services Division with NOAA's Office of Coast Survey. Each of the 4 speakers will give a 10-minute presentation, and then we will have a question and answer session at the end after all of our speakers' presentations. So our first presentation is by Dr. Emily Smith, which is entitled "The Argo Program Expands to Reach More of the Ocean Than Ever Before." So please take it away, Dr. Smith.
Thank you so much, Tony. So today I'm going to be talking about the Argo program. Just one minor correction, I'm not in climate program anymore. We moved out into our own program, the Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program in OAR. So I want to go over a little bit of what Argo is for those who may not be familiar. It is a uniform global array of floats that operate on a 10-day cycle. And this schematic here shows you how this works. So we drop them in the ocean. They go down to about 1,000 meters parking depth. They stay there for 9 days and they float along the current pattern. And then on the 10th day, they drop down to approximately 2,000 meters. And then they begin their ascent to the surface, taking temperature and salinity profiles along the entire ascent. And when they get to the surface, they then beam out that data to a satellite, which comes back to our data centers in real time. So every 10 days, we get these 2,000 meter profiles of temperature and salinity across the world. For background purposes, Argo started in 1999. In 2001 was really when many of our international partners started deploying floats. So in 2001, we had 262 floats, so just barely above our 0% coverage that we planned. Several countries were already contributing, and the data system was still being worked on. But today we have 100% coverage, and that goal of around 3,000 floats was really what we wanted to have spatial coverage of the world and do the upper 2,000 meters. So in 2004, we accomplished almost having the entire globe covered. In 2007, we reached the goal of having 3,000 floats around the world. In 2019, if you were at AGU, we celebrated 20 years of an Argo program and 2 million profiles that had been delivered over the program's lifetime. And Argo is the dominant source of information for the upper ocean in the global ocean observing system. And it has a really critical role in helping us understand the changes in the upper ocean. The impacts are that previously, to get even 8,000 profiles, and there was a world effort, a global international effort to collect subsurface profiles, and it took almost 10 years to get 8,000 profiles. Today, the Argo program delivers 10,000 profiles every month. So it really is the primary source of subsurface information about temperature and salinity for the world. Another really great thing is that the winter oceans are being characterized because our floats have ice avoidance programs where they can go be trapped beneath the ice and keep profiling. And then when the ice recedes, they can come up and deliver that information. So we're really understanding what's happening in those winter oceans for the first time. Another great aspect of the Argo program is, on average, there is a publication per day that uses Argo data that is published. So average every year we have about 400 publications using the Argo data set. Some more impacts. So on the left here is a graph that shows depth over time. So starting on the far left is in 2005, and understanding what's happening with our ocean temperature at depth, and this is anomalies of temperature, and you can see that our ocean is warming. We are getting warmer even at down to 2,000 meters. This really helps us understand what the global signal of sea level rise, where part of it is coming from, is from the ocean heat, and that the Argo program is able to track that. It also helps us detect things like El Nino when those events occur out in the tropical Pacific. And you can see at the right graph the percentages of what parts of the world and where our heat is stored. And you can see the upper ocean is a large portion of that, but the deep ocean is also a significant portion of that. And so with the deep ocean, we now have floats that are capable of going to 6,000 meters depth. So for the first time, we can really start to capture the full depth ocean heat that is happening around the world. Below 2,000 meters in this graph here, you can see it's less than 10% that we sample on a regular basis. And that's just because it's expensive. Ships are expensive going around the world and doing deep samples. So we really need to expand the Argo program to be able to be globally sampling with deep Argo. Again, this is going to give us our full heat content. We're going to know from the sea surface to the sea floor what temperature changes are happening within the ocean. It's going to improve our understanding of sea level changes both regionally and globally. And it's really going to also help us understand the deep ocean circulation. There's a lot of circulation patterns we don't know about, but since these floats free drift with the currents, it'll help us understand how they're moving and those circulation patterns. We also are doing biogeochemical Argo, or BGC Argo, as well. What this means is that we have, in addition to temperature and salinity, we have additional variables that we're measuring, including oxygen, nitrate, pH, chlorophyll, backscatter, and irradiance. And that's really to help us understand the changes in the ocean beyond the physical measurements we've been making. So in 2017, an international group of scientists put together the science and implementation plan of how we could incorporate these floats throughout the globe to get more information of how our oceans are changing. 15 countries are active in this space, with several already having deployed floats. You can see in the graph below on the bottom, that is just a schematic of how many BGC floats will be in each ocean basin based on having 1,000 globally. A big advance to BGC Argo, NSF recently funded this Go BGC program, which will be 500 BGC floats over 5 years. So it will be half the array that the international community really wants to happen. NOAA is a collaborator on this project. And then you can see there's a few other countries that are currently also deploying, including Canada, the European Union, France, China, and Australia. The global vision for Argo as we move forward, as we incorporate Deep Argo and BGC Argo, it's an integrated system. It's one array, it's global in extent, full depth, multidisciplinary. And this graph shows, or this picture shows you the plan of how we would want this system in place with the 3 different colors for core, deep, and BGC floats. And the green areas is where we really want to have double the coverage, and because those are areas that interesting phenomena happen, like the El Nino region in the tropical Pacific. So some people ask, why one Argo? Why not have 3 totally separate programs? Well, the technology is very similar for all the different float types. And so having the same type of scientists that understand it, sharing those platforms, sharing logistics. I mean, deploying these floats out in the middle of the ocean is tricky, and getting ship time. So having partnerships and talking about how to do that. Sharing the science. Sharing data management. Any of you out there in data management understand what a huge undertaking that is to maintain. So not having separate systems really helps the international community. And the total goal is to have 4,600 floats, and 1,200 would be deep floats and 1,000 would be BGC. All of them would operate, or all of them do operate on a 10-day cycle, so that we're still getting that upper ocean heat content on a 10-day cycle, and also getting the deep ocean. So we're still having the same mission carried out by each of these floats. Our progress to date. So the core, we have a little over 3,300 core floats out there. That's the dark blue dots. We have BGC and deep. And the note at the bottom, it says that BGC, that we're 30% of the way there, but actually we're only 20% of the way there. 10% of those floats only have temperature, salinity, and oxygen, and the international community agreed that you needed to have at least 4 additional measurements to count as a full BGC float. So we're only 20% there, but the NSF grant's really going to push us to be much closer. And with deep, we're only 12% there, so we really need to grow that program as well. And that is all I've got for you, Tony.
Okay, well, thank you for that very nice presentation, Emily. Moving forward, our next presentation will be by Dr. Carrie Kuhn, which is entitled Using Uncrewed Surface Vehicles to Track Marine Mammals on Extended Foraging Trips for the First Time. Welcome, Dr. Kuhn. The mic is yours.
Thank you. So today I'd like to talk about a feasibility study we did using uncrewed surface vehicles to follow northern fur seals on their foraging trips and gather information about their habitat and their prey. And I want to just start off by acknowledging all of the collaborators on this project. They come from a number of NOAA line offices, as well as our university and business partners as well. This project was a small part of a much larger ecosystem study in the Bering Sea, and it really wouldn't have been possible without this great group of people. So one of the missions of NOAA Fisheries is to recover and conserve protected species, and the northern fur seal is one of those protected species. So they are distributed throughout the North Pacific and into the Bering Sea. That's the area highlighted here in blue. And in the summer months, they breed on islands in North America and Russia, which are tagged there in yellow. Our research group is focused on the eastern stock of northern fur seals, which includes individuals who breed on the Pribilof Islands and Bogoslav Islands. In recent years, this stock has been experiencing unexplained declines, which led to them being listed as depleted under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. This plot shows pup production in the eastern stock. We count pups in order to estimate total population. And in 2018, the eastern or St. Paul Island pup production reached a 100-year low. So due to the depleted status of this stock, there is a conservation plan in place, and it identifies a number of areas where more information is needed to make effective management decisions. And one of these areas is improving our understanding of the relationships between fur seals and fish resources. So our research group is tackling this question through a number of different angles, looking at broad scale patterns over multiple years, as well as fine scale patterns on the level of an individual and how the environment or prey shape their foraging behavior and ultimately their reproductive success. So one technique that's used to understand fine scale relationships between a marine predator, their environment, and their prey is a focal follow study. And these focal follows are usually boat-based. They target a single individual or maybe a small group of individuals and observe their behavior, or potentially attach biologging instruments to measure the animal's behavior underwater. And then the boat would sample the environment around the foraging animal, potentially using an echo sounder to measure the prey available in that area. For our northern fur seals, this really is not an option because they can travel hundreds of kilometers over foraging trips that last between 4 and 10 days. This map shows foraging trips from individuals tagged on the Pribilof Islands. Each of those blue squiggly lines is a single trip. Again, they go in all directions and hundreds of kilometers. So we were interested to see if a surface vehicle, specifically a sail drone, could be used to collect comparable study to a focal follow, but all data would be collected remotely. And so basically the sail drone would follow along a fur seal's foraging path and gather data on oceanographic conditions and prey. So this is a sail drone. It is an uncrewed surface vehicle that uses wind power for propulsion and solar power to run onboard electronics. It can collect data on atmospheric and oceanographic conditions such as air temperature, sea surface temperature, chlorophyll, salinity, etc. And for our study, it was also equipped with an echo sounder, similar to those used on research vessels that are used for stock assessment surveys. Our fur seals were equipped with biologging instruments that measure their at-sea behavior and provide satellite and GPS locations. These locations, a subset of these locations were sent through the Argo satellite system. And then after some filtering and processing, the locations were made available to a sail drone operator, and then the operator would reroute the sail drone to follow the fur seal's path. Our goal was to follow an individual for approximately 2 days in order to conduct multiple follows as a part of this test. So we were able to conduct 6 follows, following an animal for about 2.5 days and 150 kilometers. This plot on the right, the green and purple symbols are modeled hourly locations for the fur seals using all of the available data. Area is where the fur seal was following along the foraging path, or sorry, where the sail drone was following along the foraging path. Now, even though the sail drone only got a subset of the available data, it was still able to follow quite close to the fur seal's path. On average, we were about 10 hours behind the fur seal, and this was partially due to our sampling design when we started the project. So as the study progressed, we were able to reduce the time between when a fur seal was in an area and when the sail drone sampled that same area. And as a part of the study, we also identified a couple of ways where you could reduce that time separation and improve focal follow results. And this information is available in a manuscript in Marine Ecology Progress Series if you'd like about that. So to show you the data collected from our sail drone, on the left here is total backscatter from the echo sounder, blue being low backscatter and red being high backscatter for our 6 focal follows. And then on the right is an example of sea surface temperature and salinity from a single focal follow. And our goal was to use this information to understand how fur seals may alter their foraging behavior in response to differing prey availability. So I have plotted here some of the behavior from our fur seals overlaid over the echo sounder data from the exact same region. So if we start on the graph on the right on the bottom, the black line is the fur seal dive behavior. So in this 2-hour window, this individual is diving from the surface down to about 22 meters. And our echo sounder data from this area shows that she is diving through a patch of shallow prey that goes down to about 20 meters. Now, in contrast, if we move up to the top figure, you can see that that shallow prey is no longer there. That cloud of blue is not present in the top figure. And instead, we see the fur seal making fewer longer dives that go all the way to the sea floor. Now, one of the limitations with echo sounder data is that you're not able to identify the fish species being recorded, but concurrent acoustic trawl surveys were conducted in 1 year of this study. And they showed what has been shown in the past, that in this region, walleye pollock is the fish species that can be, that the acoustic backscatter is showing. And so we were able to also validate what the fur seals were targeting because a small number of individuals were equipped with video cameras. So I'm hoping this works for you all. This is a video camera on the back of a northern fur seal. You can see her head moving up and down in the frame as she swims. And she's doing the dive behavior that was in that top graph, diving all the way to the bottom. And she catches a large pollock near the seafloor. And so we're able to match, using these data, we're able to match prey availability, foraging behavior, and foraging success, how often the fur seals are catching fish, to better understand predator-prey relationships for the northern fur seal. And this helps us better model or predict how future changes to the fur seal's habitat may impact fur seal populations in this area. And in case the video didn't work, this is a snapshot from it right before she catches that large adult pollock, and she'll bring this to the surface to eat it. So in summary, our tests were able to show that the sail drones could conduct these focal follows remotely over long distances and multiple days. And these data will help us understand how the environmental and biological features influence fur seal foraging behavior and success, and will be valuable to help develop effective management strategies for this protected species. And being able to conduct focal follow studies remotely over long time periods and longer distances really opens up new possibilities for this type of fine-scale research with other protected species that may fall under NOAA's jurisdiction, including those that are in hard-to-reach or highly remote regions of the ocean. And so I'd just like to say, if you're interested in more details on the focal follow study or the larger scale ecosystem project we did with the sail drones in the Bering Sea, you can check out these 2 publications. And again, I want to acknowledge all the team that was involved in this project. It was a great group effort. And if you end up with questions after the seminar is over, please feel free to reach out to me by email. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that great presentation, Carrie. Happy to say the video did work. It was very cool to watch. And I'm also looking forward to taking a look at those papers that you mentioned. Moving ahead, I'm happy to introduce our 3rd speaker, Katie Lohr, who will be presenting on telepresence science missions in National Marine Sanctuaries. Welcome, Ms. Lohr. The mic is yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. And thanks so much for the opportunity to speak to you about this project today. I'm going to jump in by hopefully answering the question, what is telepresence? So this is a great graphic put together by NOAA's Office of Ocean Exploration and Research that highlights how telepresence works on the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer, which is really similar to the setup that the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries uses with our partners. So on the bottom left, you see a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, capturing video data underwater. That video is transmitted to the ship and through the use of satellite technology is beamed back to viewers on shore in near real time. That has a lot of applications for research because scientists and experts all over the world can watch that footage and provide advice and input to the researchers on the ship that can help guide sampling, transect placement, and provide other information. At the same time, those live streams can be viewed by the general public in many cases, and that provides a way for those viewers to connect with places like National Marine Sanctuaries that are often very remote or can be hard to visit in person. We can also use those ship-to-shore connections to host live events for museums, groups of students and others, where they can have live interactions with scientists on the ship, learn more about that research and more about National Marine Sanctuaries. So understanding the utility of this telepresence technology for research, education, and outreach, NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries competitively awarded $3.5 million to 3 partner organizations to conduct deep water exploration and research in sanctuaries with an emphasis on education and outreach. Those 3 grantees are Ocean Exploration Trust, Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration, and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So I want to emphasize that although the science goals of these expeditions were developed by our office and our scientists in partnership with these organizations, we really rely on the technical expertise of these 3 organizations to make these expeditions happen. So these kicked off in 2019 at 7 different national marine sanctuaries and were really successful. But for today, I'll focus on our 2020 expeditions. So we aimed to move forward with 6 expeditions in 2020 with our 3 grantees. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, 2 of those expeditions were postponed, but we were able to move forward with 3 expeditions with Ocean Exploration Trust and 1 with Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So I'll start with an overview of Ocean Exploration Trust, or OET. So for those 3 expeditions, we relied on their exploration vessel Nautilus as the platform for the ROV expeditions. Due to the pandemic, capacity on the ship was limited to about 50%, and safety protocols like mask wearing were put into place. But that meant that our science leads from our National Marine Sanctuary sites were leading the science objectives of these expeditions completely from shore in their home offices, which you see pictured at the bottom. So this was a truly telepresence-enabled expedition. This required quite a bit of pre-planning and increased frequency of ship-to-shore communication, but I'm happy to say that, despite those hurdles, all sampling requests and exploration goals were met in 2020. So I'll give you a few highlights of those 3 expeditions. The first was to Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary off the coast of Washington State. And that was a joint expedition with Oregon State University that was co-funded by NOAA's Office of Ocean Exploration and Research. 6 active methane seep sites were found in and around the sanctuary. And those sites are of interest because they tend to coincide with areas of high biological diversity on the seafloor and may contain biopharmaceutical compounds. At one of these sites, a 60-meter wide microbial mat was discovered. That's pictured on the upper right, and that was sampled to identify potentially new chemical compounds. Samples were also collected from the site of a 2018 meteorite impact. Those are currently being analyzed by NASA at Johnson Space Center in Houston. And then high densities of deep sea corals and sponges were found within protected essential fish habitat areas. Those were also sampled to identify potentially new species. Next up was Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary in Central California. 2 priority areas were investigated. The first was Pioneer Canyon, where diverse assemblages of deep sea corals and sponges were found. Water samples were also taken to assess carbonate chemistry, microplastics, and eDNA. The next area was Davidson Seamount. A new aggregation of octopus was found to be brooding their eggs, and this is actually the 3rd such site of this nature discovered at Davidson Seamount. Previously, 2 aggregations were found in 2018 and 2019 during expeditions with OET and Monterey Bay. During our 2019 expedition with OET, which also visited Monterey Bay, a whale fall was discovered. You can see that on the left panel on that bottom image. This was actually a really great example of how telepresence technology can improve research, because there were no whale fall experts on the ship at the time, but they were able to call in and provide guidance on what samples to collect, and through that process, the whale fall was identified as a mature minke whale, and a new species of bone-eating worm was actually identified from one of those samples collected. That site was revisited in 2020 to assess decomposition and successional changes. Last up was Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary and Santa Lucia Bank. Santa Lucia Bank is part of the proposed Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. A number of deep sea corals and sponges were observed there, including large barrel and goiter sponges and large bubblegum corals. Inshore of the bank, high densities of petrale sole were observed, and that's believed to be a potential spawning aggregation site. Within Channel Islands, a number of fish surveys were conducted, a wide variety of rockfish species were observed, and one area was found to have a high density of glass sponge skeletons, which you can see to the right. That raised a lot of new questions about the role that these skeletons play in providing habitat in the sanctuary and what may have led to that die-off. In terms of education and outreach, you can see a bit of a breakdown by the numbers, but just to summarize, the live stream from these 3 expeditions was viewed over 1.3 million times. So we were really excited to have that level of engagement with viewers all over the world. All right, moving on to Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Their 2020 expedition was a little different. Instead of using a large research vessel, their ROV video was captured with a partner called Marine Imaging Technologies using small boat operations. So a limited number of crew on the boat and social distancing were put into place for safety, and broadcast took place outdoors with social distancing in place as well. This expedition was to Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary off the coast of Massachusetts. One of the objectives of this expedition was to understand how species in the sanctuary use historic shipwrecks as habitats. So footage and samples were collected to help answer that question. New observations of the steamship Portland shipwreck were made. This is a really historically and culturally important shipwreck in the sanctuary. Observations included new net entanglements and also some archaeological observations that may help answer questions about why the ship sank. A 3D photo mosaic of the Portland was created for research, education, and outreach. And then new data was collected to identify an unknown shipwreck known as the mystery schooner within the sanctuary. So data analysis is underway to hopefully identify what that ship might be. In terms of education and outreach, 8 produced live broadcasts were created for this expedition. So not only did we have live ROV footage that was cut in with stock footage to help illustrate certain concepts, and live interviews with the lead researchers for the project. Those were viewed more than 27,000 times by 35 participating venues and organizations, including virtual classrooms. So up next, I'm happy to report that those postponed expeditions will be moving forward in 2021 for the 3rd year of this project. First up is Valor in the Atlantic, an expedition to monitor National Marine Sanctuary and North Carolina shipwrecks in partnership with the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration. And that kicks off at the end of May. And then Ocean Exploration Trust will be traveling to Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and the EV Nautilus will visit Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument in summer and fall 2021 respectively. So stay tuned for dates on those as well. And for more information on these expeditions, including recordings of some of those live broadcasts, visit our website at sanctuaries.noaa.gov/live or any of our partner organization web pages. Thanks so much.
All right, well, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Katie. It's really great to see those nice images from the sanctuaries and to learn about the upcoming missions. It's now my pleasure to introduce our final speaker, Julia Powell, whose presentation is entitled Enabling Precision Marine Navigation, Discover, Download, Visualize. Welcome, Ms. Powell. The mic is yours.
Julia, if you could unmute yourself. I'm still having some issues. If you could unmute and then unmute yourself one more time.
Seem to still be having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Right. Try taking off your undoing your headphones, and maybe that will help. There you go. Go ahead and say something. Yeah, we can hear you. Great. Go ahead.
Hello?
We hear you now, Julia. Thank you so much. Julia, if you can share your presentation. We can hear you. Julia, are you able to grab the screen now? Audience, we're going to give this another minute, and then we may have to move on to Q&A. Thank you for your patience. We can see your presentation now, Julia. Go ahead and present.
I'm sorry, I think I'm...
Juliet, you still have the screen.
Hello, can someone, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm having technical
That's okay. I can hear you. Yeah, if you can hear me, we can hear you.
Yep.
Oh, great.
All right.
So if you, we've got your, do you want me to pass you the screen, or do you have
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay. Let me.
I have no clue. It was working earlier.
No, that's okay. It's all working out now. There you are. I see your screen now. Thank you for your patience.
All right, no problem. I'll keep my camera off. Maybe that was a problem. All right, so thank you very much. And I'm talking about our project that we're doing within Office of Coast Survey, but with our partners of co-ops, NGS, and National Weather Service for enabling precision marine navigation. So I like to start by saying, what is precision marine navigation? And really it is the ability of a vessel to safely and efficiently navigate within the US exclusive economic zone and operate in close proximity to the seafloor, bridges, narrow channels, and other marine hazards. And the key thing is people ask, why do we need this program or offer this data, to our stakeholders? And really this is tuned to mariners. As we all know, ships are getting bigger and space is getting tighter. We all saw that a couple weeks ago with the blockage of the Suez Canal with the Ever Given. And that if something happens in terms of navigation, it can disrupt the entire global supply chain. Within the US, mariners have to examine many different types of NOAA data and information when they make critical decisions, but they actually, it's sometimes difficult to find because it's spread across many different websites. And then, we want to provide this data so they have that ability to respond to rapidly changing ocean and weather conditions. So this led to why did we initiate this program within NOAA. Mariners actually have to use mariners use multiple devices and systems to get to our data. And it ranges from expensive commercial equipment that you see on big ships to tablets and cell phones. And the other problem is that our data, and we are a data-rich organization, but it's encoded in different formats, and none of which of those are actually navigation standards. So none of that data can be easily ingested into the systems that mariners use on a day-to-day basis. And as I've said before, they're spread across various line offices, websites, and data servers. And so the big challenge is navigation manufacturers have to go to all these different places to acquire, and then they may have to post-process that data for distribution to their customers. And then as I said, the benefits for precision marine navigation, citing the recent incident, is that we want to make the data more accessible and it can enhance the decision-making process, which allows mariners to optimize routes, save fuel, reduce lightering, which is where, for example, in the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, big ships would come in and they didn't have enough underkeel clearance, and so they'd have to actually offload a lot of that oil and then be able to come in and into the ship. So that's sort of lightering in a nutshell, reduce port wait times and avoid hazardous weather conditions. And these services really lead to increased efficiency and safety that can result in reduced emissions and environmental impact and a substantial cost savings. As I mentioned earlier, we had this precision marine navigation in action in our case study for the Port of Long Beach, and that was our initial pilot project. And the problem with Long Beach is they had a lot of wave conditions and a shallow approach, which limited the depth of those incoming tankers, which forced them to spend millions of dollars a year lightering offshore in order to get the ships in. And then, so what we did is we worked with the National Weather Service, Army Corps of Engineers, and the local pilot and Scripps, and we conducted a high-resolution bathymetric survey that precisely measured where the bottom was, and then we linked that to a nearshore wave prediction system that was supported by wave buoy observations and modeling. And then they were able to, the pilots then partnered with a private sector company that it was able to take all of our data, because we started putting that into navigation specific formats that can able to develop a go, no-go decision support software system that predicted when an offshore swell would pitch a tanker too far forward or backward, which would risk striking the bottom. So the big thing with this is once they had all of this maritime intelligence in a decision-making tool, is the Port of Long Beach was able to increase that draft limit from 65 feet to 67 feet, and then increased it again to 69 feet. And the metrics here is that for every extra foot of draft, tanker ships can actually load 40,000 more barrels of crude oil, which actually equates to about $2.2 million extra product per tanker. So there's a huge cost savings, for both the Port of Long Beach and for the tankers to come in and out by having all of that different marine intelligence. So what we're doing with our Precision Marine Navigation Services is that we're really developing several tools and services that makes navigation data more accessible. So we're looking at our different data streams and formatting it into an international standards framework, which is developed by the International Hydrographic Office, and it's called S100. We've developed a data processing and dissemination system, and our prototype was launched in July of 2020. And then we've also developed what we call our Precision Navigation Data Gateway Viewer, which was launched in January of 2021, which allows users to visualize where we have data available and then go get that via the Amazon Web Services Cloud, sponsored by the Big Data Project. And then we're also looking to launch our sort of storefront, which is marinenavigation.noaa.gov, sometime in summer, which starts aggregating all this data into one place. And so mariners have a one-stop shop of where they can find the different types of data they need to make decisions while they're navigating. And so, as I said, you know, we've built all of this using the S100 data framework. And this framework is an international standard that's very much tuned to navigation systems. So it enables, you know, system manufacturers, they'll implement at our S100 standard level. And so you can develop products that are conforming to S100. And so it provides a whole plug and play application for data into systems, and it becomes completely interoperable. And so that way it supports a wide variety of navigation related digital data sources, and it enables the transfer of data between and among ships and shore facilities, and it really integrates and transforms that data into decision and actionable information for maritime operations. So the big thing, what we've done with our prototype NOAA data processing and dissemination system is that we have a functioning prototype system that's running on the cloud. And what it does is it ingests, processes, and disseminates selected NOAA hydrographic, bathymetric, oceanographic, and weather data formatted in the S100 framework. Our initial data streams that we focused in on was surface currents, as we found that, you know, that was a smaller product, and we could do a lot of fast development on and get that operational. And that is actually publicly available via the Big Data Program. And we've reached out with to our stakeholders for early adoption. But the thing with this data is that it's the normal surface current file that's coming off of the operational forecast systems. Those are very large net CDF files. They tend to be, you know, very large, and navigation systems don't actually know what to do with it. So what we've done is, I call it peeling the onion. We've taken just the surface current forecast. We publish it out 6 times a day as a forecast that goes anywhere from 48 hours to 120 hours, depending on the location of that OFS. But that data set now is about less than 1 megabyte, so it's easily transmissible through low bandwidth environments, which is actually really important because most ships aren't really near a 5G network when they need that data. You know, we call it just-in-time data access. And then the other big thing is that we've developed is a prototype data gateway map viewer. And this is a web mapping application that makes it easier for users to discover and visualize and download these specific data sets from our S100 product suite as we grow it. As I said, currently we right now have surface currents, and we have a couple little bit of bathymetry, at least visualization. But as we grow it, we want to put water level forecasts. We're working with the Weather Service for weather and wave hazards, and eventually we'll integrate the next generation of electronic navigational charts. You know, but really fundamentally, you know, this gateway map viewer is really for the human interface. But, you know, this was all built under a whole machine-to-machine dissemination system. And, you know, the other big part of this program is really our outreach and our working with the different communities. And we look at it as it's a critical to success of this program by having a continuous engagement with our stakeholders. So currently we focus in on, you know, our pilots and ports that are really in that, what we call that precision navigation environment, but we're also targeting what we call SOLAS, which is the safety of life at sea. They're the regulated vessels under the IMO, which is the International Maritime Organization. But as we grow our program, you know, we want to eventually make sure our data is applicable to any different types of users, which goes from, you know, our non-SOLAS commercial, which uses electronic charting systems, to large recreational, to small recreational, which uses mobile apps and tablets. So here's a bit of a preview of the website that we're working on, which is marinenavigation.noaa.gov. And this is sort of our one-stop shop, as I said, you know, in order to provide access to our information. And that's a bit of a taste of the program. Thank you so much, and I'm very much sorry for the technical difficulties.
Thanks so much for that great presentation, Julia. That was super informative. We really appreciate it. So with that, I'll now turn it back over to Lisa Clark from the NOAA Library to lead us through the Q&A portion of our webinar.
Thank you so much. Yes, I love the presentations. They were really informative and a lot of great collaborations out there. Audience, we have about 10 minutes to answer your questions, so please type them in the questions chat box, which is located in the control panel, and please make sure to let us know if you're addressing a particular person. Also, some of our speakers have provided their slides as handouts, so if you're interested in them, please go to the handouts drop-down box, which is also in the control panel, and go ahead and download them before we end this webinar. And for those who joined us a little bit late, I just want to remind you that we are recording this session, so if you know of anyone who might be interested in it, it will be available later on at the NOAA Central Library YouTube channel. And we did record our earlier NOAA Science Report series webinars, so if you're interested in those as well, please watch them. Let me see, we do have some questions, so let me go ahead and start reading them. This first question is for Emily and asks, are the floats biodegradable? What happens to the floats after their profiling ends?
Thanks for that. So no, they are not biodegradable. They are largely made of metal. There's actually an entire environmental impact report on the Argo website. I don't see a way to put it in chat. Oh, I'll try to put it in the chat. The link to that, if that could be shared. But the short story is all of the components were broken down and looked at their impact on the environment, and all of them are minuscule to even natural seeps of every component.
Excellent. Go ahead and share that with the with me, and I will go ahead and make sure the audience gets that, Emily. Thank you for answering that question. There's a second question here, and this one is addressed to Carrie. It asks, can you share more about the impact of the fur seal decline on local native populations?
Thank you. That's a great question. And the local native populations do have a subsistence harvest for fur seals on the islands. And there are still a number of fur seals on the islands. The population was originally estimated to be over 2 million on the Pribilof Islands, and now it's down to much lower numbers. Our pup production estimates are about 80,000 on, let's say, St. Paul Island. And you multiply that times 4 to get the overall population on the island, adults and males and females, et cetera. So there still are a number of fur seals that are available for the subsistence, and they still harvest the juvenile males, and they've recently, new regulations have been put in place for pup harvest as well. But the people who live on the island and use this resource for subsistence are very much interested in this decline as well. And so we are trying to find ways to work together. This is an important resource for a number of reasons. It's the species' ecological impact, as well as its value to the community. And so it's very important that we find out what's causing this decline and how we can mitigate and help recover the population.
Thank you. Again, audience, I go ahead. I encourage you to ask these questions while we have our presenters live. And if you haven't opened up your chat box, you should see some links in there from our speakers. There's usually a little bit of a delay with me receiving questions, so I'm going to wait another minute to see if we get any more questions. Meanwhile, presenters, did you have any last comments before we end this presentation today? Nope. Oh, I see there's also, let me share this, another link. This is from from Julia Powell. It's a link to the PMN Data Gateway Viewer. One moment, please. Okay. Here's another question. This question is for Julia. Julia, are there other ports that you will be working with in the near future, like Port of Seattle or in Alaska, where pilots are essential to transit?
Yeah, thank you. That's actually a very good question. So the dissemination system that we built is a national level system. So where we have data and the best available data, and as we work to operationalize it, we'll be putting it out. We do have what we call port focus areas. And so our first 2 port focus areas were the LA Long Beach pilot project and New York, New Jersey. And then I believe we're going to the lower Mississippi River next. And you know, but I think, you know, as we get data and start doing other, you know, for example, like our high resolution bathymetry data, you know, as we have normalized survey operations and as we move to produce that data into a product that can be used in the navigation systems, it'll start being populated for, you know, more and more ports beyond what we have, as we call our top 20 ports, based on a socioeconomic study that we had done. You know, and some of it is also reliant on where modeling goes too, in terms of producing operational forecast systems to provide that type of water level information. But I do know Cook Inlet for surface currents should be coming online, I think, in the next year or so. And then Seattle, we would put out the bathymetric data, but we also need sort of a high resolution model to get out water levels and surface currents, and that has a longer development timeline. So, but yes, we try not to focus specifically on ports, but more on regions and as a national level dissemination system.
Thank you. It appears that that was the last question today. Tony, did you have any last comments before we end the webinar?
Sure. Well, thank you for leading us through those questions, Lisa, and to all of our speakers for sharing your work today. A very big thank you to all of you. In addition to everyone for joining us for today's webinar, I also want to give another thank you to Lisa and the NOAA Library for all their continued help with this seminar series. Friendly reminder to please keep a lookout for the 2020 NOAA Science Report, which we anticipate coming out quite soon. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. I'd like to conclude by thanking our speakers for sharing their research with us, as well as Tony and the NOAA Research and Development Enterprise Committee for organizing this series. And most importantly, I'd like to say that NOAA Central Library is proud to host presentations like today's that feature the work of the NOAA community, and that we hope you'll join us again. So be well, everybody. Thank you.